Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well and had a really good holiday. Happy New Year and welcome to 2021. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 important themes for the month of January. The first is redefining freedom. The second is attuning to prosperity. And the third energetic theme of the month of January 2021 is paradigm shift. So stay tuned for the rest of the energy update. Hi everyone. As I said, I hope you had a really good end of the year and a good holiday season, whatever you were celebrating. We had a ton of new energy come in the month of December. So if you've been a little tired and a little run down, it's probably not just the holiday hustle and bustle that has gotten to you. What I'm noticing in my own being is that I am processing a lot of the upgrades that came in December. And always when we bring in new light and new upgrades and new information and new energy codes into our body, we have to shift out some things that are no longer in alignment. And 2021, as I shared in my workshop that I had last month around the themes of this year, is all about change and shaking things up. And, I really look at the month of January as preparing us for what's to come in the year. And even more so this year, we're going to be challenged to really find our center, find our still point within ourselves, because yes, 2020 was very tumultuous and there was a lot of unexpected things happening, but there's a lot more change coming this year. The Aquarian energy that has anchored is very outside of the box, very creative, very different. And we're going to see that on a macro and a microcosmic level. So the first theme that I want to talk with you about is this idea of redefining freedom. I know many of you probably felt a bit of a dampening on your holiday celebrations because you couldn't spend time with family, but maybe also because you still feel really trapped in the paradigm that's been created with this virus that we're experiencing here in this world, in this earth plane. And one of the things that I'm noticing in session with my clients and in my own meditations is that I'm being challenged by my guides to redefine what I consider to be freedom. And, especially here in the United States and many other countries that were founded on the democratic ideal, we have really gotten away from the notion of freedom that we were originally founded on. And I see that shifting this year on the macrocosmic level. I see a lot of talk about freedom and personal freedom and a lot of questioning of that. Very similar to what happened in 2020, but a bit more expanded. It's going to be a big topic of conversation this year. But before we even get into any of that, we have to work with the frequency of freedom within ourselves. And I don't really like to use the word sovereignty. If you look up the definition of sovereignty, you might understand why I don't like to use it. There's a very inherent battle in that term, that there's a good versus bad, or we have to go against something, we have to claim sovereignty. It's not about that as we're working with this freedom frequency. I want you to think of it as you can be free in any relationship, in any career, in any job, in any project that you're working on. Even if you feel like it's not completely in alignment, you can carve out a little space of freedom within every experience that you have in your life. So many of us attach a future thing that must happen in order for us to feel free within our being. And the reality is that is just what our mental body is doing to kind of keep us in the trap of the ego long term. And so what I'm noticing this month is that we're going to be asked to look at freedom and what does freedom mean for us on an individual level, and start to cultivate that as much as possible within the confines of our life as it exists now. And when we come into a place of surrender and acceptance and feeling that freedom within the experience that we're having now, we kind of bust the door down and open up to allowing anything that's really constricting to fall away. Because the only reason that something is constricting in your life is because it's there to teach you something. And so when we surrender to that teaching and we surrender to the understanding that we can be free even in the confines of that constriction, we then release the power that that constricting element has over our lives. And we can step into a place of opening to allow that to just naturally fall away without us having to force. I spoke a lot in 2020 about us releasing over-efforting and forcing things so that we can make space for more of this beautiful divine feminine energy that's coming in, that wants to support us and wants to lift us up and wants to bring us into a feeling of prosperity and freedom within our beings. And we can't really receive that frequency and be in that flow if we're still focused on battling against the things that are confining us. And so there may be some things on the macrocosmic level that you're afraid of that you're worried are going to confine you and take away your freedom. The more you battle against that, the more power you're giving to that thing that you're afraid of, and the more you're anchoring into that fear. And so really focus this month, especially the first couple of weeks of this month, on what does freedom look like for me in this moment? How can I have freedom within the confines of what's been constructed around me? And what does that look like without me going to battle against those constrictions? And so that's something to really sit with and to maybe journal about this month, is what does freedom look like for you now? It is possible for you, even if your external circumstances haven't aligned with the perfection that you would like to call in, that equals freedom for you in the future. And that kind of really nicely aligns with the second theme that I want to talk with you about. So, we've been slowly eking our way towards working with money. And this month, I'm seeing it come up a lot, as I do in January and February and the beginning of the year. There's always a lot of focus on money and finances and budgeting. But what I'm noticing is that we're actually working on it at a different level this time around. We're working at it from the frequency of prosperity. And this idea of redefining and attuning to prosperity. And, prosperity is something that is available to all of us. And I like that word even more than abundance. I feel like abundance has been almost overused in the spiritual and new age communities, and it has a lot of baggage associated with it. And there's a lot of programming that we have around the word abundance. But what I'm noticing is prosperity has a higher frequency. It has a bit more clarity in it. And prosperity looks like this very bright and shiny energy that wants to come in and create shifts in all of the different landscapes of our life, bringing us into a feeling of being prosperous. And to me, prosperity and prosperous energy feels like it's ever expanding, ever flowing, and it's constantly being created. And there's constantly an influx and there's constantly an outflow. And that's very much what we want to think about when we think about money as well. We want to look at it like the ocean. It flows in and it flows out. And the more that we hold and we try to be a bit of a miser with it, the more there's going to be an energy trying to pull it back from us. Right? And so there's a very fine balance that we have to walk with the money frequency, and prosperity is a beautiful energy to start to attune to. Start to attune your thoughts to, I am prosperous. I am prosperous in relationship. I am prosperous in my financial landscape. I am prosperous in my career and my success, right? And figure out what that looks like for you. What would it feel like for you to be in prosperity? And do some work with that word in particular. And you'll see that when you work with freedom, you'll start to open to the frequency of prosperity. These two things go hand in hand. And I keep getting reminded by my guides every time I talk about this with someone that, especially here in the United States, freedom and prosperity for all was what we designed our Constitution around. And we're not living it, quite frankly, here. I don't know that we're living it really in any country in the world to the degree that we set forth that charter. And I think that we are going to be challenged in this year, 2021, with looking at where we are not living up to those agreements and those charters that we created when we founded this country. And if you're in another part of the world, I guarantee that this will be present within your landscape as well, regardless of what your country was founded on. This is a theme across the board, because we can't really all align to these higher, more joyful, more easeful, divine feminine frequencies as a collective until there is freedom and prosperity and equality for all. And we're going to start to see this year a lot of alternative currencies and those kinds of things coming in. There's going to be a lot of focus on building something new, but in order to align even to those new structures, we as individuals have to do some inner work around money and prosperity and abundance and all of the things that kind of make us feel a little icky inside when we talk about them. So start to attune to the frequency of prosperity. Work with that as a word, as a frequency, just like you're going to work with freedom this month, and see what comes up for you. There may be some lineage stuff from your ancestral line, from your mother and your father lineage that comes up. There may be some past programming from relationships that you've been in where you didn't feel prosperous. There may be some big stuff that comes up for you this month that you maybe wouldn't really want to look at normally, but if you can spend a little bit of time journaling about it, I'm really hearing writing is a big deal this month. And just let those emotions and those programs come to the surface, and then align with the prosperous understanding that you can release them with ease. It doesn't have to be a struggle. And there's one more point that I want to make about these first two themes, and I'm going to tie it into a pop culture reference. So even though all of the reviews for Wonder Woman 84 were really bad, I felt compelled to watch it just to see what everybody was talking about. And yeah, there was some stuff in there and the storyline was whatever. But what I walked away from that movie with is that it was sending out a huge program and a huge mental kind of mind control type thing to all of us, because the theme in the movie was that if you make a wish, that you have to pay a price. And so within these themes of freedom and prosperity, what I'm noticing is that we're starting to work on anywhere where we are programmed to believe that if we receive something good, we have to pay a price. And we have to have earned it, and we have to be worthy of it. And, we're always to some degree working on worthiness, because that is such a human program that we all run that keeps us separate from source. But this idea that there's a cost versus reward paradigm is being called into question. And I kind of love that this movie brought it up. Some people would say that it's conditioning people to continue to believe that. And sure, that's true, but it's actually stirring up energy within us. I think that everything that can be looked at as bad can also be looked at as good. It can be looked at as a trigger that's going to activate some stuff for people. And here we are at the beginning of the year where there's already some feelings of lack, especially on the heels of what we've been through in 2020. And this movie is stirring this up so it can be healed, right? Everything has a purpose here on this planet. So I just wanted to weave that in because it keeps sticking with me, that theme. And if you haven't seen it, I'll be interested to see, what comes up for you if you watch it. And if you have seen it, feel free to put some comments below this video on if you picked up on that as well. And so the third theme that I want to talk with you about this month is paradigm shift. And really the bigger theme here is aligning to 2021. So as I've already mentioned, outside of the box, creative expression is the name of the game this year. And that looks like, on a very macro level for each of us, change. And I don't know about you all, but change is not comfortable for me. It has historically not been comfortable for me. 2020 forced us to be real fluid and to not really lock into any expectation and any attachment to outcome. But what I'm noticing now is that everybody's kind of in paralysis. They're afraid to make any kind of change because they don't have a guarantee, like they felt like they had in 2019, of what was coming. And, that's divine feminine frequency, right? You have an idea, you have a spark, you have something you want to create, but you don't really understand the how. And that's the way we're supposed to be creating in this world. And so this idea of paradigm shift and adapting to change is huge. And we're going to get blasted with it in the month of January to give us the best possible landscape and foundation as we go in through this whole year, so that we can kind of ride the tidal waves of change rather than get kind of pulled under by them. And, I use the term paradigm shift because what I'm noticing is, on an individual level, something that you thought was going to go one way or was true in one way may show up as being completely different. And I have kind of a funny example from my own life. So we've just recently rescued a puppy, and she came to me in meditation and was super clear about her name and what she was here to do, about being here to amplify and activate joy. And so I had a little bit of an idea of what that was going to look like when she came into our lives. And I also had some ideas from the last 2 puppies that I raised over the last 13 years that she was going to show up in a certain way, and that the typical training that I would have done for my other 2 dogs in the past would work for her. And boy, have I just gotten smacked in the face with this reality that she is an Aquarian. That's not even her sign. She's a Libra in astrology, but she's coming in with this Aquarian energy. And even down to the way that she wants to sleep and the way that she wants to rest at night is very different than any other animal that I've ever raised. And I was very frustrated the other night when I couldn't sleep. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I finally just put her down on the floor and she went right to sleep, which was not what I expected her to do. And my guides were kind of laughing at me and they said, yeah, that's the theme, paradigm shift. What you think and what you know is going to be challenged, and you have to really be okay with thinking outside the box and looking at things from different angles and doing things in a different way. And I just had to laugh because my guides are always so good at bringing things into my life that align with the themes that I'm going to be teaching about for the month. And so you might be seeing this in your life as well. It might show up in your relationships, it might show up in your career. It may show up in how you're caring for your body. Maybe last year you got in kind of a rut and you need to shake things up. And January is always about shaking things up and getting in a new routine and all of that. But it's almost more expanded this year because it's also going to be happening at the collective level. And in December, we got all these light codes that came in and activated all these dormant parts of our DNA. And generally when that happens, it creates a paradigm shift in our being, because the intuitive abilities that we have and the gifts that we carry and the way we walk in the world, when we expand in our DNA and more light comes in, it shakes so much stuff up and it brings so much stuff to the surface that we didn't even know we were capable of. And you may also, within this theme, find yourself reclaiming old parts of you. So, a paradigm shift might also look like a part of you that you lost or you left behind in another career or another relationship that's over, coming back, but being birthed through you and used in a new way. So that's another way that might happen. And I see this in my mind's eye as I talk with you about it as energy threads from your multidimensionality returning to you and being woven through you so that you can show up in a new and brighter way. And I think that's what's happening on the macrocosmic level as well, because we've got a lot of new energy coming in, especially here in the United States with the government shifts and all the things that we've kind of shaken up at the end of last year. There's a lot of new energy that's going to try to weave in, and we don't know what it's going to look like. And so this ability to adapt to change and not be afraid of change is very, very important. I'm noticing that everybody's inner child energy has been pretty triggered because we all feel this new wave, but we don't know what to expect. And we got bitten in the butt, honestly, so many times last year by having an expectation that we're all really afraid and we don't really want to plan too far ahead. And so it's kind of like we're learning to walk again. And so these paradigm shifts might surprise you. And so approach it with childlike curiosity. My puppy is a really great teacher in this because there's so many things that she doesn't know about. And I'm watching her watch my 12-year-old corgi and how he walks through the world and then experiment and be curious about things. And so she's teaching me in a really interesting way how to be in this place of adapting to change and being flexible. But within that flexibility, how do we create stability for ourselves when we're moving through change? So the last thing I'll say about this theme is one way to support yourself this month as these changing energies are coming in is to build yourself some guardrails. So for me, that looks like meditation and mindfulness and watching my diet and getting out in nature and spending some time in the sunshine. And it may look different for you. You may be a runner or some sort of, different kind of exercise regime, or you may have a hobby that you want to lean into. A creative pursuit would be great this month. We need to create some guardrails for ourselves so that there is some bit of normalcy and foundation and structure so that we can weave with that change. And so when it comes in, our nervous system has already locked into some bit of stability and we don't get overwhelmed by the change. And I have been working with the practice of spatial awareness and in meditation, really anchoring myself within the space that I'm in and being aware of the space around me, because that makes my body feel safe and comfortable when I'm moving through a trauma response when change comes. So many of us have trauma attached to change. So pay special attention to your routines and your structure that can create stability within the flow this month. And that really is this beautiful marriage of the masculine and feminine energy. So those are the themes. We're going to be focused on that third theme of the paradigm shift and aligning to the 2021 energies in the healing circle this month. I just see how many people have difficulty with change, and I really want to bring in some supportive structure and some help around that to really set us up for a very prosperous and free 2021. So I hope that you have an amazing month. Our healing circle this month, as I said, will be on January 20th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So I'll put the link to that below. I've got some exciting things coming out for those of you that are my subscribers. I'm going to start in the month of February, maybe even this month, we'll see, doing some extra attunements and energy downloads and activations for you around the other themes that we don't focus on in the healing circle. So those of you that are subscribers, there's more good stuff coming your way. If you want to be a subscriber, I'll put the link to that as well on the comment section of this video. So I hope you all have a great month. Thank you so much for watching, and Happy New Year.